What's up, YouTube? It's Man Like Relic. This will be my patch 6.16 review. For being a relatively small patch, it had some huge changes for the champions on the Rift. So in the patch, there'll be a total of 3 nerfs and 2 buffs that we'll be taking a look at. And it'll really change the way that team fights break down, and then along with just some passives with some different champions. So we'll start out with the nerfs. And the first one on the chopping block is going to be Irelia. So her Ionian fervor used to reduce tenacity based on the amount of just having one champion inside the radius. So Riot has taken that down to reduce her tenacity to based on how many champions are within her radius. So with that, they took her radius down from 1,400 units to 1,000 units. And then they removed to where tenacity is no longer based solely on the number, or solely based on an enemy, but now it's based on the number of enemies to the number of allies that are in your radius. So if there's more of you as Irelia in your team, you are going to get a 0% buff in tenacity. If you are evenly matched, you will receive a 10% buff in tenacity. And then if there are more of them than there are of you, so if you're in the top lane by yourself as Irelia, and then you have all 5 of the enemy team in the top lane with you, you receive a maximum of 40% tenacity. So, and that'll be scaling down to 4 people only giving you 35%, 3 champions only giving you 30%, 2 of them against you only giving you 25%, and then again, if you're evenly matched, you'll receive a 10% tenacity reduction. So it's going to really change the way that Irelia plays, and that she's not going to just be that overwhelming champion that can just have cooldown reduction and tenacity through everything just by you being near her. So look for that up there. And then they just gave her a tooltip fix where her AD scaling was just incorrect. It was changed from 0.6 to 0.7, but the actual value never changed. Okay. The next nerf is going to be to Sona. Now, we've all seen Sona in Summoner's Rift. She's super annoying right now. She is dominating that utility support role. I've seen her banned more times in the ranked matches and in normal matches than I've seen any other champion, just because of her ability to give that early and late game sustain, and her utility with her E for her Song of Celerity just makes getting in and getting out for her entire team just beyond strong for Summoner's Rift. So Riot has noticed that. I think last time I checked, she had a 53% win rate on the Rift. So they're going to be cutting down the speed boost that her Song of Celerity gets. It used to scale at 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17%. That is now down to a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% for herself. And then it used to get to scale for her allies at 0.8% of her AP. That's now down to 0.6% ability power for her allies. And along with that, they are nerfing her cooldown they're nerfing the percentage that her ultimate crescendo gives to her basic spells and abilities. So, for those of you who don't know or have never played as Sona, Crescendo reduces the cooldown of her basic spells and abilities. So that used to be at 20, 30, and 40% for her R. That's now down to a 10, 25, and 40%. So Riot's trying not to completely make her useless inside the Rift, but they're trying to take it to where she does not dominate that early game, because the Song of Celerity, the way it was, she was uncatchable even after she made a mistake. So Riot's trying to ensure that champions can punish her for making her mistakes without her just being able to E herself out of it and then just run off. So expect to see those changes in the gameplay now, and that should help us be able to deal with Sonas in lane and in that late game aspect inside the game. So the next and final nerf is going to be to Victor. Victor is dominating the mid lane currently. And so Riot's trying to prepare the game for Worlds and trying to just even things out. So the plan with Victor is they're trying to up his risk to reward profile. So they're trying to do that by changing his ult. So his ult's maximum movement speed used to be 450 units. To bring that down to 400 units. But they gave it his minimum movement speed for his ult a buff from 170 units to 200 units. So the farther away it is at its maximum range, it's still going to move at 200 units, comprised of that 170. But even when it can be used at its maximum movement speed, that's going to be down to a 400 units. So there's a little bit of that, meaning that Victor is going to have to stay closer to his ult and rely on either CC or put himself in those risky positions in order to maintain that Chaos Storm over his enemies. So the speed of Chaos Storm will start to decay at 300. It used to start to decay at 350 units. It will now start decaying at 300 units. And then the minimum speed cap will be from 950 units down to 900. Another big change with Victor's Chaos Storm is it no longer has snapback. So if he targets himself with Chaos Storm, it will not move at its maximum movement speed back to him. So that's just a small change for Victor's ult, with him not being able to bring it back to himself. So expect those changes if you counter Victor in the mid lane, or if you main Victor, just know that you're going to have to put yourself out there to get the Chaos Storm onto your enemies. And then if you're countering Victor, just make sure you punish him for having to make that risky play. So next will be the two buffs that occurred in 6.16. The first one will be the Lulu. So in recent patches earlier in the year, we saw them really dumb down Lulu's ability to be that straight shield support that she used to be known for. So they're trying to give her back a little bit, make her a little bit more useful by giving her Whimsy a buff. So Whimsy, whoever it's casted on, will boost their attack speed based on levels. So for the changes, they changed the cooldown from Whimsy from an 18, 16 and a half, 15, 13 and a half to 12, down to a 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, depending on level. And then they changed that attack speed. They gave it a buff from a 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 to a 25, 30, 35, 40, and 45% depending on level. So she's really going to be able to give that AD carry in the bottom lane, or that AD carry in team fight. Anybody who is soul damage relies heavily on basic attacks, she's going to be able to greatly increase her attack speed. You can imagine a Vayne that attacks at 1.5 a second, and then giving her a 45% attack speed bonus on top of whatever she already has. That's not including Vayne's items or the attack speed that she already has. So expect that that's going to allow those AD carries to put out shitloads more damage just by that attack speed buff. So look for that. Hopefully we'll get to see Lulu coming back in and gradually getting better as the season progresses and as we move towards Worlds. So the last and final buff I'm going to talk about is huge. It's going to be a buff to Nautilus and his ult depth charge. So we all know Nautilus is just being that tank, especially in the bottom lane or in team fights, to just soak damage. It can just be really annoying with his pull. And his ultimate's always somewhat just been a pain in the ass to deal with just because of its knock-up. But Riot just gave him a huge game changer when it comes to his ultimate. So his ultimate's not only going to knock you into the air, but it's going to also stun you with that. So it's really going to give Nautilus the ability to lock down a single target. But with that, every enemy champion that depth charge passes through will also be stunned. So his stun duration is going to be 1, 1.5, and 2, depending on level. And so it's going to really help Nautilus's solely lock down a key priority target inside a team fight, or just be able to synergize well with most enemy champions and give his team that time to deal that massive amounts of damage that is needed inside the team fight. So my biggest thing I can tell you is don't group up if you're going to fight a Nautilus, obviously, because you're all going to get that stun, and that's just going to be really shitty for your entire team. And then, two, if you play as Nautilus, make sure that you're timing those depth charges at the right time and locking down that enemy carry, and then just trying to aim it and position it to where you get the maximum effect for it. There were a few hotfixes and changes. I'm sorry about that. That's all for Nautilus's buff. Just make sure you're looking out for those things. Along with 6.16, there was just a few hot fixes that came out. So Leona Sunlight, now when an ally procs her passive, you'll be able to see it if you play as Leona. So it'll be nice for Leona players. And then anybody who plays Mordekaiser, they just cleaned up the way that the AI acts for Children of the Grave. So not too much there. And then finally, the last big thing that came out in 6.16 was the release of Kled. Look forward to me doing a champion review on that later on. But that's all for the 6.16 patch review that I have. Please, if you liked the video, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.